What are we? 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 Yeah, yeah. Good day to everyone tuning in today. My name is Victor Mukasa, and we are here at Trans and Intersex History uh, Africa, History Africa, TIHA, and as usual, we are here for some of those archival trans conversations. We apologize to everyone who was set to tune in earlier on, about 45 minutes ago, for a show that we had scheduled for that time where we were going to feature an activist. Our lenses were going to be on Tanzania this time with a phenomenal trans activist there. But unfortunately, due to technical problems, we are not able to broadcast that show today. But remember, Tiha is still here. And therefore, we will not waste this segment. We have decided to fill in with another interesting conversation, and that is about Transgender Day of Visibility. Transgender Day of Visibility is coming up very soon on Monday, 31st. We need to get in the vibe for Transgender Day of Visibility. And, I'm not going to have that conversation by myself. I'm having that conversation by my colleague Lizo Teron, a very big contributor to the African trans movement. Lizo Teron from South Africa, an activist currently based in Mexico. We will also have other activists, and if you're out there and would like to take part in this conversation, feel free to click on the link in the comments section that will bring you to the studio. That, yes, I see you, Mr. Adebayo Katiti Kalibada Sebo Sabasaja. I see some trans people are already joining. Please join us today in this conversation. Let us know what visibility, Transgender Day of Visibility, means to you. What visibility means to you. Let us explore what visibility is like for each one of us and for all of us as a movement. Lizo, I invite you to come on stage. I know you are backstage. You're backstage, yes. Lizo, you're like a flower. When you come, I see like a flower has just showed up. And so I am so happy to see you. And anybody, Chris, please feel free to join us in the studio too. Let us talk about Transgender Day of Visibility. Chris is another phenomenal actor.
Hi there. Yes, I'm very glad that it seems like we had a bumpy start, as Victor said, but it all will continue. We are going to have our talk today and reflect about the Trans Day of Visibility, and which is coming up on Monday. So somehow something happened that I can't hear anything. So I don't know if Victor asked me something.
Do you hear me now?
Now I can hear you. Yes.
Yes, there are activists who are calling me directly on my phone. Ken Kim from Nairobi, please join the live stream through the StreamYard link and not my phone. Whenever you call me, you take off the live like as you have seen. So please do not call me again, kindly. But yes, as I was saying, it is our time to discuss this, and I welcome you to the studio, Lizo. Do you want to introduce yourself to uh, our viewers?
Hi. Am I there?
Yes, we hear you very clearly, Lizo.
Okay, great. Thank you. So yes, my name is Liesel Tron, as Victor said, and I am an activist for transgender rights. I can't remember how long. This is now about 20 years. So people might have known me in my first role when I was visible as the co-founder and director at Gender Dynamics. But since then, I moved on and I continue working on various topics that is involving trans people, trans rights. Sometimes I do it in the form of research, and now here with my colleagues, I join in part of actually creating visibility through our website, which is about trans and intersex history in Africa. So yes, in a nutshell, that is me.
Thank you so much, Lisa. And as we start, I hope that our team members in the studio are posting the link to the studio in the comments section. That is where people will be clicking to get into the studio. But for starters, as we begin discussing how, what Transgender Day of Visibility is, it happens this year is Monday, March 31st, and this is an annual uh, celebrating the achievements and contributions of trans individuals, and I will say an intersex individuals, not wanting to leave that behind, because the two movements kind of have similarities somewhere. And for me, I find it fair to say that I have a lot of trans intersex brothers and sisters and others on the continent. So it is that day when we celebrate the event, when we celebrate the achievements and contributions of trans people, and at the same time raising awareness about the discrimination and the human rights violations against trans people. So we are kind of making our trans and intersex people, we are trying of making ourselves visible, but also educating and also sharing about, basically it's a celebration. And that
I
is
want,
just in a nutshell. It's just in a nutshell, but this show is for us to expand on that, about how we all understand this this event. Lizo, maybe we start off with you.
yes, I wanted to actually, as you say, that we are also doing education. So let me quickly come in there. One point that is very important for us to know, especially because in our website we work with both trans and intersex. However, today internationally is known as the Day of Visibility, Trans Day of Visibility. We have towards the end of the year on 24 October the Intersex Awareness Day, and then just a week thereafter on 7 November the Intersex Day of Remembrance. So it is important to know that on the various days we will give attention to specific causes. Like today is very specific about the Trans Day of
Trans
Visibility,
identifying.
because later in the year, in October and November, there are two designated days for the intersex visibility. Coming back to that, Victor, you asked me a question, and I will answer you of what does the Trans Day of Visibility mean to me, right? But then I will
Yes.
also ask you a question. So let's have a conversation. So for me, transgender diversity is number one, if you want to break it down exactly about that, the visibility of the achievements of the human rights, of the existence, of the accomplishments of trans people. And especially in political times like right now, when we feel that there's such a onslaught on the rights in general, but definitely targeted at trans people. It is even now more than ever that we have to actually illuminate that visibility and make sure that we do not forget the accomplishments. We have in various countries throughout the continent some type of achievements. There was, for example, already in 2012, around, there was already the start in Botswana of the Trans Pride. We have in various countries, in Kenya, in South Africa, in different countries, accomplishments through law. Even if it feels like small steps, one person won a certain court case, but point is, Throughout history, we cannot erase the existence of trans people, and this day is all about that. Victor, and also I wanted to know from yourself, if we speak about a word of visibility, because me and you, we can in theory say, oh, it's so important and visibility, visibility. But in your own life, when were you aware, and that's when it brings us to visibility, when were you aware for the first time about the visibility or the existence, the being of trans?
Well, wow, that's a very interesting question because it makes me pause for a second to think. And in my personal life, really, Lizo, I was having a conversation with some Nigerian community members on TikTok yesterday, and indeed, we're talking about visibility, and a conversation turned into visibility. And I remember telling them the story of how my identity, for such a long time, for at least 2 decades of my life, that my identity was only in terms of who I was attracted to, and therefore my sexual orientation, and that I identified as a butch lesbian. At some point, I saw people like me in Namibia identifying as lesbian husbands, and I'm like, oh, I'm a lesbian husband. That's my identity, because gender identity was not a part of our conversation in Uganda, part of our conversation discourse in Uganda. So I never knew about such things, even though I knew that even if I'm a butch lesbian, there is a way in which I'm a little different from other butch lesbians. There are things they were comfortable with that I was not comfortable with. The story of our childhood were kind of different, you know, uh, how we play, like there was a lot of things I picked here and there that made me different from many fellow butch lesbians that I knew. But it was not until 2005 that I left and went to South Africa for the first time for a workshop. And there in South Africa, I entered the offices of Gay and Lesbian Archives of South Africa, Gala. And I saw a picture of a person who I thought was a woman, who I thought maybe it's a butch lesbian, so we were similar in that kind of manner. But then this person was binding their breasts with a bandage. And I remembered, my God, it struck me so hard that all along, since my breasts came out in Uganda, I thought that I was the only single human being in the world binding their breasts. Although for me, I used a belt, my school skirt belt. I wore a skirt at school. It's my school skirt belt. And it was like exactly the picture that I was seeing. And I asked, why is this person doing this? And then they told me, oh, this is a trans man, and this is what we call binding. This is how he's doing it in so that he can pass and it is the same explanation that I had in my mind that I had never shared with anybody in my world. And I'm like, oh my God, I am a transgender person. This person, there's a lot that we have in common. So I read more about the other pictures, the captions, and everything in the office. And for me, that was my coming out as a transgender person. And even then, I came out as a transgender lesbian. For a long time, if you read history about me, you will see me being introduced as a transgender lesbian because I knew I was a lesbian, but also now I know I am transgender. And for me, it was as simple as that until much later in life. So, South Africa, it looked like there was already visibility about transgender people. And further ahead, as we discuss, we will realize that visibility helps others to get the courage. Visibility helps others to get educated, to discover themselves. And for me, that was my story. It was the visibility of trans people in South Africa, particularly that trans person who had shared their life with the world, that actually I got to realize, name my identity, and even become proud of it. So all along, all that time when I was young, I was just like, I think people just hate me because I run like this, I eat like this, I sit like this, I play like this, I do this. But I didn't have a name. And it is that through that visibility in South Africa, where people like Lizzo actually worked hard to get to that point, that I was able to peacefully find a place to rest and come out as transgender in 2005. I'll stop there for now, Lizzo.
Yes, and I think actually we met each other way back in 2005 or 6, right? In that very first time when you come to South Africa.
Right,
That's when we
right.
met. And
Yes.
that's also the exact same time when we started with gender dynamics. So without us knowing back then, but it was quite historical actually how our path as well started coming together in that same year when it was the year for you coming out as trans, and then also the same year we started with gender dynamics.
Right.
A very short while after that, in December 2006. I mean, it sounds like a long time if you're in that moment, but now looking back, it's 2025 today. So clearly, it was a short while later, just 1 year later, there was another international organization by the name of ARC International.
Right.
And they had in, oh, or was that in December? No, it was in 2006, December. They had, well, they have had at those times every now and then somewhere an international meeting, almost like how the ILGA world, it always have their meeting somewhere else in a different continent. So they
Yes.
had a meeting in Johannesburg, South Africa. And in those, as you say, you came from Uganda, you learn about this word transgender and go back. But there was still not anything, you can't even call the word movement. I mean, there
Yeah.
was not really anything much yet. Remember, we also have to know in those years there was not social media, TikTok, Facebook, all of those
Right.
things that where information went so quickly and so fast.
Yeah.
It was really only mostly at people's offices where there was computers with internet.
Right.
And the limited few people that had the privileged position of having a computer at home, it is many times maybe shared with the whole family, with the wife, the husband, the
Mm.
children, the whoever, or if it is a younger person with the parents, which means these are not things you sit and search up in internet, because we didn't even know so very well in those years clear the cookies. So you don't want to be caught out for what is the type of things you are searching, right?
Yes.
So really information went in 2005 in those type of years much slower in various African countries, including South Africa. So in 2006, in that December, there was the ARC International Conference, and people came from all different types of continents and countries and regions of the world. So speaking on this topic of visibility, a few things happened in that meeting. One of it was, well, number one, they were from other regions of the world, intersex activists and transgender activists. And very visibly, they came in that, I mean, they came as that, right? Like if you think of today's times, when you go to a international LGBT meeting or conference, like let's say you'll go World for it, you will come and say, I'm a trans activist or from a trans organization. I mean, you come in that position, right? And here we are in an international meeting with very strong and powerful activists, well known, especially, I will never forget it, especially some activists, I know them by name, from Latin America. Very outspoken. And even
Oh
here,
yeah.
and even now when I live in Mexico, you know, with the Latin speaking, if one can call it that way, which is not really the correct term, but point is, they are very radical. There in the roundabout, when everyone introduced themselves, I introduced myself. And in those years, I couldn't even speak 5 words of English in a proper sentence. My grammar was even wrong. I
Yeah.
literally learned on a daily basis to start speaking English. It's not my first language, right?
Right.
So I introduced myself in that meeting saying, I'm Liesel Tron. I am from the organization Gender Dynamics, and I work on behalf, I use the word behalf of trans people. And that was a knee jerk. Half or more of the trans activists from especially Latin America, but throughout was kind of like rejecting about this thing that here is a cisgender woman and working on behalf. Where is the trans people? Why are you here and why are they not here? And it was a big fight, and we had to explain that there was not in those years in 2005 and 6 there was not trans people that was willing to publicly take the face and say I'm a trans person, because meanwhile back they don't know if they will lose their jobs. That's the reason why I was the co-founder of Gender Dynamics, and my trans partner of that time was actually in the background. He was even scared he would lose his job if he visibly say that he's doing this type of advocacy or activism. But a second thing that happened in that same years later, we could actually I met those same activists again in other platforms, and we could talk about it. And the one very vocal person at that time also didn't speak a very fluent or good English like me. We were both like very, so we realized number one, my word using behalf was completely wrong. And then obviously we could work through the motions and all of that. But another important thing happened at that meeting, while I didn't know it in the moment, but since that December meeting through to, let's say, January, somewhere in the early part of the next year, which is 2007, about 3 trans activists that we know today who are leaders, that's vocal trans activists, who were at that time, like Victor, thinking I'm a butch lesbian, because that was the only language available. 3 of those people from different African countries came out to me, emailed me or called me and say, I will need to talk to you. I think I'm trans and let's talk about it. I need information and whatever. So that whole fiasco that happened at the ARC International meeting was quite pivotal to the trans movement as we know it today. 3 of the trans leaders of that times actually came out, or came the same way as Victor saw that person binding and realized something about himself. 3 of our other leaders came out in the same manner, like, oh my word, look at that. They hear what I said, they saw what the Latin American activists, like how they present and how they fall. So they could understand the context that this is what is happening here. So visibility is really key. Visibility is what make people, and even the newer generations of today, it just happens faster because there's TikTok and Facebook.
But in still in that line, Lizo, what were the contributing players in South Africa for the visibility that we see that started so long ago, even before visibility started in our regions like East Africa, West Africa, and other parts of Africa, like apart from gender dynamics? Because it's clear that at the time I got to know about gender dynamics, I was seeing a person binding in
exactly
the
in the
gay and
photo.
lesbian archives of South Africa. So what are the other contributing factors, or individuals or organizations, or that you know kind of play the role in that visibility?
That is a very, very interesting question, and you are so right about that, because the fact that I could stand up and say XYZ doesn't mean that was the only contributor. The fact that there was in the Gala archives a photo say 2 things to us. Somebody took that photo. There was
Must be Zanele Muholi.
I wanted to say it's Muholi. Today's times, you have to also not address the person in the first name anymore. They are now known as Muholi or Dr.
Muholi.
Muholi or Prof. Muholi, but they are now Muholi.
Oh, Professor Muholi. If you're there, Professor Muholi, my bad.
So definitely, so yes, that's what I want to say. So number one, somebody took that photo. Somebody realized something is happening here. I need to take this photo. And the fact that those, if I think back now, because again, today Gala is having trans programs, having that on their map, really do a lot in the beginning years together with Gender Dynamics, but they even archived trans history before Gender Dynamics came forward, or before in the LGBT sector formal language of trans, if one can call it that way. They were already documenting, because when we together with them produced that book in 2008, there was, for example, a chapter in, or not a chapter, in the middle segment of it, we had, for example, in the inside photos of things that comes from the archive, like archival material. And there's a photo even in there of a black and white newspaper clipping of a person that worked as like a nanny or a cleaner, a domestic worker, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that person was the nanny, the female house cleaner, the domestic worker, until the day she died, and they realized this was a male-bodied person.
Wow.
But in those years, and it came out in the news, so Gala archived that. Gala have quite a few important archival materials, but they themselves and language were not developed. And I remember in those beginning years, I worked a lot with the person who was at that time the archivist, Anthony. And he said, but we can't say this is a trans person. They didn't claim the word. They didn't say they just said I'm a woman. I said, but we have to see it in the context, because in those years the word transgender didn't even exist. We're speaking of the 1950s. The word didn't even exist of transgender.
Right.
Actually, nowhere so far I know. So,
Right.
so therefore, but it is still an important archival piece of material of visibility that I kept.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
yes, your question of who was other role players, even though there was not a formalized organization, let alone movement or movements, there was someone collecting these type of works. And that photo that you saw of Muholi with about the one person binding was not the only documentation Muholi did
Of
of
course.
people that whatever spectrum word they would have either then or today used for themselves, Muholi captured those people,
Yeah.
whether there was a certain language of it or not, because that's part of the history. If we see how it developed, the language and the visibility didn't, no one in a global whole world woke up and as of this date we are speaking of transgender. It developed.
It did develop indeed, and yeah, that's really, that really hits me positively hard when I think about the contribution of Professor Muholi
Yes.
to the visibility of the trans movement in Africa. Because yes, trans people, we come first. We have actually pushed ourselves forward, but in terms of amplifying our message, amplifying our existence, I think that artists such as Professor Muholi have played a very big role, and that is the importance of allyship, allies, and in movements. That when they amplify us in whichever way they amplify a community, they are actually creating that visibility for that community. And yes, we should celebrate all this on Monday,
Definitely.
the
and
31st.
and when you speak of those early other contributors, even if it was not in a formalized way,
Yeah.
and mentioning Morley as an artist in that, another important thing happened in that same ARC international meeting, when that whole ambush, when a lot of the activists actually bombarded me like, you are, then you should step down and gender dynamics should not exist until a trans person comes forward. And I
Yeah.
mean, that was going to be like 3 years later, right?
Yeah.
But another important thing happened in that very early stages. I already had contact with Robert Hamblin, but
Yes.
he was not in himself ready yet to come forward being a spokesperson. He was in that same stage of you having a different other identity in those years. He
Yes.
did professional with clients, with paid clients photography work, so therefore he didn't even know what that would do to his career. There was all of that, but in that moment of, I almost want to call it ambush, I called him. I said, please, these activists, because we were already like informal little discussions. I tried for a long time to get him to come onto the board. I mean, years later, he was on the board, and later on in the staff of Gender Dynamics, he was on the board in the same time, I think, that you were, right? But so that came years after as a result, when he started being more active, and when it sits with him, he's fine. He can actually say he's a trans person.
Right.
But in that ambush moment, I called him and I said, please, I need, if you can call a few friends, if people can come over to this hotel one evening and we have a sit down with this other Latin American activist and tell them there are more, because they even ambushed me like, are there even trans people in South Africa? Why are you taking up this space? Because we also know the rhetoric that how many times cisgender people take up the spaces of trans people. So clearly, them here in Latin America, that is like 20 years in advance of us. So they already know the exploitation of many times of cisgender people taking up spaces. But for us in the whole continent of Africa, this was so new that like we were not even there yet at exploiting anything. There was no funding to be had because you say you're a trans activist. There was nothing. It was because of my partner who was scared he would lose his job. That
Right.
I will speak up.
Right.
So
Thank you for that insight, Lizo. And for those who have just joined us, you are at the home of Trans and Intersex History Africa here on Facebook and YouTube. We have these conversations every Friday. We call them the archival, Trans and Intersex archival conversations. And today we are basically talking about Transgender Day of Visibility, what it means to us as a movement, as individuals, just going back in history even to see how we have built on visibility and what the effects of that have been. You have already listened to some of the stories from Lizo Turan and myself. In terms of personal story in the beginning. So, for those of you who are watching us and would like to participate in this conversation, there is a link in the comments section on YouTube and on Facebook. That link is a link to our studio. If you click on that link, follow the instructions, and you'll be backstage, and we will bring you on stage here to just share with us what does visibility mean to you. And I see that we have my brother from another mother, maybe even same mom, and we just don't know. Just need a DNA test. Chris Adebayo, based in Canada, originally from Uganda. Super activist. I don't know if you hear me. I hear uh, an echo. I don't know if you, those who are listening, Chris, it might be, maybe you.
Can you hear me?
We hear you, Chris. Welcome to the show, bro. That was Chris Adebayo. Technical problems today, I tell you, everyone. Please send energy to the universe. And may she give us good internet and take away all the technical challenges. Chris Adebayo, I'm sure, will be able to join us again. And salute, comrade. We hear you and welcome to the TIHA Archival Conversations. We are discussing Transgender Day of Visibility today. And if you could just introduce yourself and also share with us what visibility means to you at whatever stage you want, whether in the future or in the past or at the present. It is yours, Chris Adebayo. Welcome to the show. Slick and Slacious, welcome. Kajiado North for Empowerment and Social Welfare Outreach. Yes, Chris. This is very, very sad because
we want to hear what Chris is having to say.
You can hear me?
We do now. Yes.
Okay. My name is Adebayo Chris Katiti. My pronouns are he, him, they, them, mwami, sebo.
Yes, sir.
Yes, I'm a black trans man. Motherland is Uganda, and I'm residing in Canada right now.
Welcome to the show, Chris.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, Transgender Day of Visibility is coming up.
Yes, it's a big day, and what I'm doing here in Alberta.
Yes.
I know you are familiar with Alberta anti-trans policies and all that. So,
of course, the only reason we know anything trans about Alberta is because of you.
Hey. Yes. So yeah, we opening housing initiative, a worker housing for Black transgender folks and Trans LGBTQ newcomers and refugees on Trans Day of Visibility. And I think for me, yeah, for me, I think it is fundamental and important for people to know that we're not just trans, we are also creating spaces and environments for our communities to live in, for our people to have a sanctuary to be themselves, you know,
Yes.
without fear. And as for me, visibility is like beyond my gender identity, you
Yes.
know, beyond people projecting my transness and attack me because of my transness. There is a lot of contribution that I'm doing, you know, that
Yes.
doesn't erase the fact that I'm transgender, but I have created that home. I am doing music for people to listen to that really reach people's hearts. I've
Yes.
supported people in various ways. So I think I am a counselor, a graduate counselor, right?
Yes.
So all this is part of my visibility as a trans person. When they
Right.
used to say trans people can't do this, or trans
Mhm.
people, there is a way I think the community outside our community, our trans community, project their hatred and discrimination on trans bodies. So
That's
for
right.
me, visibility, I'm telling people, yo, beyond me being transgender, I'm impacting to the community. I'm paying taxes. I'm helping community. I'm helping different communities to start afresh, you know, to settle in this country. You know, beyond me being a trans person, beyond my body being targeted, which have been constantly targeted, right? I'm doing the work. And so many other trans people, you are doing the work, right? We are doing the work. Beside us being that the fact that we are living in communities that sometimes deem us unworthy of life, you know, sometimes target our entire existence. Yo, we are contributing. Without trans people, the world will not be where it is right now,
That's right.
believe it or not, you know. So I'm visible, you know, but also I think I want to highlight people who are in the closet. I've been hearing you talking about pieces of how so many things came to be, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm so happy to hear this in my ears. It fuels my ears like
Yeah.
beautifully, right? So
Right.
people have to understand that we have been here since time immemorial, whether without the language of transness or not. Trans people have been here since time immemorial. Since the world existed, we have existed. We have been visible, you know. We
Yeah.
have been visible, we have been impacting our community and highlighting the fact that it is Mama Marsha P. Johnson, Sylvia Rivera, you
Yeah.
know, who led the trans movement.
Yeah.
Yo, we are celebrating trans rights, LGBTQ rights, the
Right.
LGBTQ movement. It
Yeah.
is because of trans people, Black
Yes.
trans women,
Say it
trans women
loud.
of color. You get what I'm saying? So this is why we're here. This is why people are having gay rights. You get what I'm saying?
Yes.
It is
Yes.
because of trans people. And people
Yes.
try to erase that history, but no,
Yes,
they
and
can't, you know?
it has been a very big move to erase us in so many ways. Trans people, even today, are still being erased out of the histories of these movements. But because of that visibility and determination for us to be visible, we are beginning to reclaim our achievements on behalf of everyone, our contributions to the struggles. We are beginning to reclaim that belongs to the trans movement. And Chris, I like the vibe you bring in here, a vibe of celebration of our
Yeah,
identities, and that visibility is beyond our bodies. Oh, is he on hormones or not? Does she have this or not? That it is beyond that. It's about everything else that we are doing. And I would like to congratulate Rika now, in under your leadership, for what you're launching on Transgender Day of Visibility this year. And we shall remember this day in history in the future, when you launched that safe housing, decent, dignifying space for Black trans people in Alberta. And we thank you so much for everything that you do. And I wanted to ask you a question. But before I ask that question, if there's anybody else who wants to share a story or contribute to this conversation, click on the StreamYard link in the comment sections of YouTube and Facebook. Join us in the studio. Today we are just having a party that and within the spirit that Chris has brought us today. And Chris, growing up as a trans person, like I said earlier, I grew up as a butch lesbian, but later on, I discovered myself. There was no visibility of transgender people in Uganda during the time that I came out. When did you realize I am actually trans? And what was the environment like in Uganda? When I was coming out of trans, there was no visibility of transgender people.
Yeah.
Like, what was the environment like in Uganda when you realized that you are trans? To see if we had made some progress or, just
Yeah.
see how things were.
Yeah. So that is the advantage I had. There was progress, there was light. There was trans people already in existence and who are identifying as trans people.
Right.
But I want to first highlight the fact that beyond the visibility and beyond the language of trans, I
Sorry.
used to
Sorry,
play.
Chris. Becky, do you mind muting yourself? There's a lot of noise coming from your side.
Yes, I used to live as a trans some boy. You get what I'm saying?
Before
Since,
you go to Transam Boy, it's
yeah,
about language, also visibility. You
exactly.
introduced us to the word transam so that when you submit, we want people to understand exactly what you mean. I am very proudly using the word transam because people say I'm handsome. And now I say transam, which I learned from you. How did we get to this word? And then continue with your story of you being a transam boy then.
Exactly. So I'm an artist, right?
Yeah,
So I'm
yeah,
like, people, I'm not handsome. I'm not, right? I am handsome. So someone was calling me handsome, and I'm like, I am handsome.
yeah.
You get what I'm saying? Don't like, and I think I'm really joyful when I'm talking about this. I hope you feel the joy.
We feel it. We feel it.
You feel it?
Yes.
you know because like we have to create our own language and our own environment before people
Yes.
give us their own or label us their own. I'm
Yes.
not a cis man,
Yeah.
no.
So
So
you know that some of us use the word transam
yeah,
from you, and that I'll remember and tell my children in the future that I am transam. I was taught this word by an old man, Chris from Uganda, so many years ago. So continue with the story of how you realized you were
yes. So
trans.
that story is like before that there was already visibility of trans people, right? So that
Yes.
is the advantage I had.
Yes.
But growing up and talking about human development of a trans body, of a
Yes.
trans person, right? I'm
Yes.
playing soccer with my boys, with boys at home. I
Yeah.
do not want to do chairs of girls do. I'm
Yeah.
I'm I'm the protector.
Yeah.
I'm the protector of my relatives. When something happens at the well and someone is like, oh, they run to me. They were my brothers, like sis brothers, but they would run to me because
Yes.
they knew I would never turn down a chance to go and protect them and say,
Yes.
do not touch my sister when I'm here. You know,
Yeah.
so so these pieces of me growing up, despite the lack of language that I have the privilege to know now, right? I
Yeah.
was myself. I was my authentic self. Now, here comes a chance of me seeing Pepe on TV, of
Yeah.
me hearing other trans people. I'm like, damn, Pepe,
Why are you gay?
why are you gay? I'm not gay. Who says I'm gay? You know, no, you are gay. No, I am not gay. So that for me gave me so much highlight, so much knowledge, you know,
Right.
of
Right.
them. There are people like me, because I was all constantly called abnormal.
Yes.
Abnormal, you
Mm.
know? And I'm
Mhm.
like, there is nothing good about being normal on the other side, right?
Yes.
But I was always chakula saja, labeled
Yes.
chakula saja, you
Eh,
know? I'm still
and
my
Chakula
brother.
Sajja, what does Chakula Sajja? Direct translation for people who don't get it.
Chakula saja grew up like boys, but it
And
was
it's like it grew up.
yes,
Yeah.
it grew up like boys, but they used to use it to bully,
Yes.
you know, to bully me, to bully in that way, right?
Yes. Yes.
But then finding that, of course, you know, that is the language that also, when I come to think about that, that is the language they had of people who were like us. They
Right.
didn't have a language of transgender.
And it was
Right?
very derogatory.
Mhm.
Mm.
Mhm. And now here I am seeing people who I'm like, oh my God, I am like that person, you know?
Yes.
You
Yes.
know? So I can't really, that really for me gave me so much highlight, Pepe. I did see so many other trans people
Mm.
who I'm like, damn, this is me. Now hiding in soccer, because me, I always say soccer was a hide, was
Yeah.
a hideout for me, because I had access to wearing shorts.
Yes.
I didn't wear skirts, right? I had
Yes.
I'm like, wow, wow, wow. So these pieces for me really gave me a language, gave me safety, a sanctuary, or
Yes.
people to look up to, people to see that, okay, there are people like me, I'm not abnormal. There are people
Yes.
who embrace who themselves. So
Yes.
why not, right?
Yeah.
Why not? So to respond to your question, that is how I get to know other trans people. I get to start use the use of the language of transgender, and part of it during the Pride
So,
they raided.
yeah.
Even before that, when I stood up as Mr. Gay Pride, I am the
Yeah.
real Mr. Gay Pride Uganda, just so people know.
Yes, but from what you're saying, it still stresses the fact that visibility helps. It helps in so many ways, and one of those ways it helps others who are still unsure, others who are in fear, others who are scared. You know, it gives them some positive energy to face whatever they're facing. But also, the issue of language, it also really plays a big role in, you know, bringing us to light and proud of who we are, the history and where we come from. You're looking at and also having people to look to what do you call that, like figures out there to look at and be like, I am like this person. I think that that comes out of your story. So please stay with us,
I, I
Mr.
say
Adebayo.
visibility is a force of nature.
I beg
You
your pardon.
Visibility is a force of nature.
A force of nature.
Yes.
Very briefly touch on that.
The moment I'm visible, you know, oh my God. I you know how people say me being there are pieces that are not forces of nature, right? Like hate is not a force of nature, it's a
Right.
land behavior, right? But visibility is a force of nature, it's a powerful source of force of nature that you impact others by being your authentic self, by
Right.
being visible. There are people who find courage to be themselves, right? And that is a force of nature. It moves through in any way, wind, rain, name it. And now I
Yes.
went through spiritual, but then all that, you know, by being myself, there are other people who are like, oh my God, I can be like Adebayo. I want to be where Adebayo is. That's a force of nature, you know?
Yes, Adebayo, we will look at I mean, that is a very positive part of visibility. Visibility being a double-edged sword. On one side, there are all these positive and exciting things that we are discussing. On the other side, there are certain things that also come that are not so sweet. And I would like you to stay around with us to share with us your experience of the other side, the effects of the other side of visibility, the other side of effects of
Yes.
visibility. For now, I would like to bring Miss Becky up also to share about, and please, Chris, my brother, my transam brother, stay with us. I plead because we still need you here. Studio, may I please have uh, Becky, if Becky is still in the studio, and if Becky is not, Lizo Teron, you come back and stay with me and Chris and hear what you have to say about everything that Chris has just shared with us. Lizo Teron.
I think it is so correct what Chris shared with us about language go together with the visibility part. I think I already actually touched on that.
Yeah.
I have another interesting story on that same topic because, you know, in those beginning years of gender dynamics, I'm speaking again here in the phase between 2005 to 7. Those were the real beginning years where gender dynamics, many times, at least in the part of South Africa, did a lot of advocacy on the topic of trans in the broadest spectrum, transgender. In those years, it was still also very acceptable to say transsexual. So
Yes.
on the whole spectrum of transgender, transsexual, trans, even some people in those years, due to language available to them, would even actually still identify themselves as transvestite. And not
Yes.
only by the derogative media or that, or in the psychology sector or fraternity, but there
Yes.
were people really, I met people who would have introduced themselves as that.
Yes.
And then jumping forward, one time I was in a meeting, let's say for a week in Pretoria. So I took the opportunity to reach out to Pretoria-based LGBT organizations and ask if we could have a presentation or talk with community members. You know, we kept all the possibilities open for raising awareness.
Mhm.
And there's an organization in Pretoria, people might know it by the name
Out. Yes.
LGBT organization, and they said, well, in this week that you're going to be in Pretoria, we're actually in Mamelodi in one of our satellite meeting spaces, community meeting spaces, you know, like a safe space, kind of like that afternoon where everyone come and have topics or workshops or whatever. They said, okay, sure, you can come and speak with the community members there in Mamelodi
Mhm.
about whatever you want to speak about, because we always look for different programmings.
Mhm.
Here I arrived. They're sitting around on chairs around in the room, I would say 10, 15 people. And, you know, we always know that you cannot identify a person. People must tell themselves who and what they are, how they identify. I can't say, oh, you are this or you're that. No one of us actually in the whole world can tell other person how to identify. So I introduced gender dynamics, I introduced myself. I said, let me introduce the topic. We're going to speak about transgender,
Mhm.
about, and I used that type of language because in those years, transgender and transsexual was the two corrective or correct languages acceptable to use. So I say, I'm here today to speak about transgender and transsexual people. And I
Mhm.
could see everyone just sit there. There's no connection. They, you know, like, oh, here's this woman in front of us and she's just blah, blah, blah. And we, what is she saying? And
Mhm.
as I speak, I realize I lost this opportunity. These people don't connect with me. They don't get it what I try to say to them.
Yes.
And in that, we're speaking here really, I think, of 2006. Like literally, at that time, I didn't even study in the University of Gender Studies. I really had no guidance other than use your mind. What is happening here? You are losing this audience. You're wasting your time and their time. I said, okay, wait, don't worry so much about this transgender and transsexual topics that I want to speak about. Did any one of you hear in the past of people that refer to themselves as or had or want to have a sex change? I want to know where can I get hormones. The people got alive. They realized, this is 2006 without internet really.
Yeah.
They realized the moment I used the language of sex change, this is what transgender and this is what transsexual is. And they realized, we are here. We want to actually hear what you have to say to us. There came questions. Where can I go? What can I do? All of a sudden, and this is the barriers that language, and this is even just all in the same English language. I'm not even speaking of all the other languages people speak, right?
Right.
But just by the usage of a vocabulary word, if I were persistent in being so-called political correct in that time and speak of transsexual and transgender, I would have walked out there. They would wonder, what the hell is she wasting our time? And I would like, oh my word, nothing happened. The moment I lost that barrier of the political correct word of that time in our history and say like, and the conversation flow. So language is so important and part of visibility.
Right. And I'm glad that we are developing language.
And moving forward.
A language that actually, and then I would like to bring Becky in, if Becky can come in. Becky, how are you? Introduce yourself and please let us know what visibility, Transgender Day of Visibility means to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Victor Mukasa, and I'm sorry for that first echo which has been disturbing people. I'm glad to be welcomed here. I'm chosen Becky, pronunciation she, her, Executive Director, Trans Arrivals, Kenya. I would love to first thank you for this program. Thank you very much. And Trans and Intersex Africa. For me, visibility, it means a lot. I think the first point I've shared it there, but I'll go and say that sometimes visibility for me, it requires the strength, resilience, and the sacrifice. Whereby, as we see long time ago, even God sacrificed love and the purpose. So God needs us to sacrifice the love and the purpose He gave to us. But some people, they might think that visibility, it can be to those of LGBTQ only or the ITGNC people, but sometimes it requires the strength. I need to have the strength, and I need to have to be with resilience,
Yes.
which I can sacrifice.
Right.
Like someone can write for you that, Becky, I need some help. I need to sacrifice that help so that I use the strength and also the testimony God gave me. If God gave me the testimony of helping people, I would love to help people when I'm celebrating my visibility. For me, sometimes I can understand that. And sometimes I say it affirms the existence of transparency. Before us coming, there was the transparency, as you know, Victor Mukasa. You can be there when you are parent, but when you are trans,
yes,
you might produce a trans woman or a trans man. So it affirms existence. Your existence will be affirmed by that child and the services of the beacon of hope. Yeah. In that point, I might say that parents usually produce us, but when they don't know which kind of a person you have produced, you might see that you produce someone called Andrew, yet in other way is a trans woman.
Okay.
So that person will be an existence. Like once you die,
yes,
I'll be there because you were my parent, and I will have to serve you like the way you grew up me. So for me, I understand visibility like that.
You understand visibility in a number of ways, even looking back at where we come from.
Yeah.
All right. And if Chris can also come back, I have a question for you and Chris. And starting with Chris, does increased, because we see that there's increased visibility of transgender people in Africa. Even if we're not on the ground, we can tell. And for me, the question right now is that, does increased visibility always mean progress? We have seen a lot of amazing things that come out of it, but does it always mean that progress, that positiveness, when it comes to your thinking, Chris?
Hmm. That's a good one and a tricky one,
Yes.
because it is a yes and no,
Yes.
but a high percentage is yes,
Okay.
because visibility is power, right?
Yes. Yes.
But also, we know there are so many other people who are coming out as trans when they are not, right?
Mm-hmm.
And from a perspective of a trans individual or a transgender man, right?
Mm.
The people who come out as trans to access resources of trans individuals. And
Yes.
that is where I'm looking, I'm saying that yes and no, right?
Right. Right.
Right? Because there is that projection.
Mm-hmm.
But then, however, the power of visibility overpowers that in all ways,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
That
You know
means
that
that,
it's a force of nature, so it's not surprising.
yes, it overpowers, because
Yes.
that is why you have premiers like here who are attacking trans people, yet there are so many other issues that they can address. That's why you have countries in Uganda who are targeting LGBTQ people. But let me tell you, they are targeting LGBTQ people, but who is at the forefront? It is the trans people,
Right.
right?
Right.
We are the face of the LGBT community. So whatever laws and decisions they are making, they're being interpreted based on trans existence.
Right.
You can hear parents and people say, if my child is gay, if my child is lesbian, it's okay. If my child choose to transition and change the gender they were assigned at birth, it is not okay, it is evil. You get what I'm saying?
Yes.
Yeah, so that is my approach to that. Yes and no.
And no.
However, yes, outweighs.
And that is why they continue to call it a double-edged sword. And for you, Becky, when you became visible, with all the good things that you explained earlier, did it also cause you some trouble?
That's a man.
Becky is not is going through some other stuff right there. We will wait for her to settle down. But yes, Chris, does that increased visibility? You mentioned the negative side, which at the end ends up into positive. But perhaps let's talk about how harassment, targeting then comes in because of that visibility. Because at the end of the day, we want to explore both sides and see what strategies we can take, and at the end of the day, to address the discrimination, the violence,
Yes.
and all those negatives.
People fear what they don't know.
Yes.
Right? People are scared of what they don't know. And when you live in a society which has taught you to hate other people, which has taught you that the only people, human being, are the cis people,
Yeah.
it's when you see something different, you think it is an attack on your existence.
Mm-hmm.
So you do whatever it is to fight it. You do whatever it is to eliminate it into existence, right? And that is the attacks that we see on trans bodies. I'm
Right.
talking about trans bodies because beyond the trans community, this attack comes on our bodies, right? And
Yes.
denying access to healthcare, denying access to community, denying access to community resources. And
Right.
that being said, to really highlight the fact that they're coming for our bodies,
Mm-hmm.
when people start taking away what is rightfully ours, we have to use all that it is to get it back.
Right.
But often the time we go through different channels, and we face unimaginable discrimination. Our bodies take a lot to really show up as our authentic self. Me, that is why I highly respect and value every trans person who comes out as trans individual, who comes out and be visible and take parts to really be themselves.
Right.
We know there are other people, other trans people who say they are trans, but when they're attacking trans people, they are okay. They will say, I'm not trans, I'm not trans. They will go back in being their cis people, their cisness.
Yes.
So that means the attack on our bodies as trans people, as people of transition, right, does not impact them when we are under danger. When they are murdering trans women, people who do not have any part of transitioning as a trans person is gonna go back and wear their cis dresses and whatever, and they pass, so they will not attack them. So they will not kill them. But we know the highest percentage of people who are being murdered to death, America, Africa, whatever, the trans people, the trans women, you get what I'm saying?
Yes.
And that's why you're seeing us as trans men being protectors who will fight. We'll fight for our women.
Yes, that's right.
Saying? We will fight for them.
Yeah,
you are creating a space and environment for them to share their stories. You are fighting for them, right? And people have to know that what's really huge and rich. When we say fight, we don't mean tankers and whatever. We mean in different ways. Fighting by creating spaces, fighting by being a voice, you know, fighting by showing up for them, by saying, you will not disrespect this individual in my presence, right? That is us fighting. That is us telling people how to treat us. You get what I'm saying?
We are visible and we shall fight back.
We can't stop.
So it means that visibility comes, we celebrate it, the outside begins to fear what they don't know, and then transphobia even increases. But you're saying we should not give up at that moment. We should fight back and continue claiming our spaces. Thank you very much, Chris. And Becky, I hope this time the internet is good to you. I want to ask you, Becky, when you came out as transgender, did that ever affect your relationship with your family, with your church, with your mosque, where you go to pray, wherever you go to pray, amongst your friends? Did that affect you when you came out of trans and said, hey, everybody around me, I am trans, I'm a trans woman?
Oh, thank you very much, Victor Mukasa, for that question. At first point, when my family and where I started from, they realized that Becky, I have become a trans woman. It was 2019 by the time they arrested us. It affects my mind at first, at the first, because I was into a closet, and by that time they have realized who I am. At first, it first attached me, and I regretted at first. But I started being an activist. I started gaining powerful, so that now I don't fear. Even though you hate me, I don't. Even though you do me, I don't care whether you hate me, whether you love me, because the family hates me. Everywhere hates me. But even though you hate me, when my family, the ITGNC people, they are in love with me, I have no issue with that. So sometimes it distracted my mind long time ago. But at this time around, Victor Mukasa, I don't care. What are the family, what they do, because they watch everything, what I post, they do everything. And there's a time I told my mom that what you are saying now it's going to change. I'm going to do transitioning so that I change my body. So that I think from that end you will stop feeling biased and judgmental on me, because I'll be changed person. I'll not be the other person who can wear a trouser and who can be with beards. I'll change from another person to another person. So it sometimes distracts my minds, but my minds are now times stable. I don't care about the family or about the community, what the community say.
And you have
I just be proud of who am I.
and as we get towards the close, do you have a short message to trans people anywhere in the world that are beginning to face rejection and persecution because of coming out as trans within their families and communities? Just an encouraging
Okay,
message to them.
okay, thank you very much, Victor Mukasa. For me, the message I can send it to my fellow transgender who are out of the country, they are in the country. I should just tell them that be proud of you, what you are. If you decide, or if you were born to be a trans person, just be like that. The family will love you. They will reach a time and they said, but this is our kid. This is our what? Because as you've seen that visibility, it affirms the existence of the transparency. So I'll continue telling, and those one, like the way Mr. Adebayo says that there are trans people which can which who has become a bias to other trans people. Like for me, I have Nene, I have an evidence where some of the trans women who have gone through transitioning, they can turn to those people who are not yet into transitioning, feeling having bias onto them and judgmental, calling for them. They are calling them women, and others they are saying that those are trans. They have what and what and what. So I would tell all the trans people that you should be proud of yourself, and you should keep safe. This world is not easy, and most especially those in Kenya, you should keep your security. No one will keep you if you don't keep yourself. Yeah, is what I can say. Thank you very
Thank you
much.
so much, Chosen Becky, activist and executive director of Trans Arrivals Kenya. Thank you so much for sharing your stories with TIHA and our viewers. Happy Transgender Day of Visibility on Monday. And I hope that we get to see some of the celebration within the refugee community in Kenya on Monday. Thank you very much. Thank you for always showing up. I wish you well. And my friend, brother, comrade Adebayo, as we end this show, I have seen a lot of amazing work that you do in North America. And I say North America because you encourage me from a distance when I see the things that you do, the way you stand up for transgender people, especially women in Canada. I have seen you doing your advocacy, and right now I would like to hear a message. Request you to give a message to activists, people who have decided to dedicate their lives to fighting for this visibility, for progress within the trans movement in Africa. Just a message of encouragement because you have firsthand experience of what an activist goes through for standing up, but you also have firsthand experience on what an activist can achieve for standing up. So just a message that encompasses all that you can leave for activists, activists especially, but also our allies in Africa today.
Yes, first of all, thank you to all activists, all trans activists who show up, who do this work for the community. You're not doing this work. This generation might not benefit from it, but the future generation will, because we are all standing on shoulders of our ancestors who did the work. That's why we keep mentioning Marsha P. Johnson. We keep mentioning Sylvia Rivera. We keep mentioning David Kato. You get what I'm saying? Because of the work they did, we are standing gracefully and powerfully on their shoulders.
Right.
Now, the message is authenticity is the highest frequency. There is no other, right? There is no other. So if you're authentic, you get what I'm saying? That is the highest frequency, and people will fight it. As activists, as trans activists, we are always targeted. People will accuse you of things that you did not do. People will label you aggressive. People will do whatever it is to bring you down,
right,
to bring your passion down. and you clearly, if you're an activist,
Yeah.
the wars you are fighting that people don't even know about.
Right.
So that being said, just know you are seen. Just know the generation that you're doing this work for will appreciate, and people will benefit because you are showing up, because you are doing this work. There is so many people that you will never even hear from, that you will never know, that you will never see, that are highly benefiting from the work you're doing today. So rise up and shine. Work in joy. Don't let nobody dim your light. I am here because you are there and you're doing the work. I am inspired because you're doing the work. I am laughing and enjoying and feeling joyful because you are doing the work from a place of love and care and tenderness. You know,
Yes.
visibility is key. I appreciate the work you do from my heart to yours. And our ancestors are there rejoicing, are
Amen.
happy because you are doing the work. You're continuing the work. So don't give up. Don't let people boya boya you. Don't let people chuku chuku you. Keep on. You get what I'm saying? That's the message from me.
That's our comrade Chris Adebayo says, don't let people chuku chuku you, and boya boya you, or
No,
bring you down.
no.
Thank you so much for that message to the activist community, trans activist community in Africa. Chris Adebayo is from Alberta and executive director of Rarica. Now they will be launching some dignifying trans housing in Alberta on Transgender Day of Visibility come this May 31st. And we wish them luck. Thank you so much. I will invite, if I could be given in the studio, Lizo Theron again, so that we close this conversation together. A conversation that actually, if we were able, we would have for an entire day. Lizo, it was so great to have you here today because the first conversation that takes us back to the time when there was no visibility at all in most of Africa, and looking back at the work that you started in South Africa and the work that you remember had already started across South Africa. I think that is a very big takeaway for us, and it shows us that visibility leads to more visibility. Visibility encourages us. Chris says visibility is in visibility, we need authenticity, which is high frequency. And, all these things, we're talking about language. And I thank you so much for your contribution to all of this work and visibility that we see on the continent today, that you sit aside sometimes and let trans people speak, and at some point you you sat in that space as an ally, and encouraged many people. I can testify to that for what you have done. So thank you so much, and I would like you to give a last word about this show today, and if you can, please, about the work that we do very briefly, and reaching out to our supporters also.
Thank you for that. Yes. The person who said that a nice phrase of visibility, authenticity, and what was the other?
Said authenticity is high frequency.
Yes, please. The person who said it, if you are still there, please type it for us that we have it in the comment section saved.
That's
I
Chris
really loved
Adebayo.
that. That was very strong, and I also obviously loved the
Trans.
transom.
Mm,
Yes.
mm,
But anyway, that was just the two nice takeaway words or phrases of today.
yes.
So the Trans and Intersex History in Africa website, we document history, and we have currently stories on the website's timeline as far back, I think, as 1950. And we keep on working on getting the more historical questions in. We are obviously interested in what is happening today, 1 or 2 years ago, but we do not need to lose the memory of the years so far back. As Victor and I spoke, we are still here giving away our age, but in 2005, 6, 7, the two of us in different ways, me as an ally and Victor as a person just coming to some of the terms, we kind of like struggled even with these languages, like what is this?
Yes.
So that is the importance, that we don't lose that. We will watch the space. I don't give away too much secrets, but we will definitely at the end of April have somebody in the studio that transitioned in South Africa formally in 1975. This is how long ago, and we don't want to lose those individual people's histories either, because together all the individuals people's stories or histories bring back a picture of a whole bigger history. That being said, I'm not giving away anything more. I just want to say also thank you to our funders. We are supported by the Australia Foundation as well as the other foundation. And as a fiscal host and a partner in different other kinds of support, not necessarily money, that's not the only support a person need or organization need. We are also supported by Gender Dynamics. So we want to say thank you to the supporters. And more than ever, we want to definitely say thank you also to the audience members, the people who are tuning in when we are live, as well as obviously ongoingly seeing the videos both in our YouTube channel as well as on Facebook. I start seeing that there are changes in Facebook, like about after a month videos uploaded, it's been taken off. That's done by Facebook. Therefore, it's very important. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, because there our videos will stay permanently available and not disappearing after a month. So that's very important. Go ahead, look at our stream at the YouTube and subscribe, that you can always see them in a row, and or watch them later on at your leisure whenever you want. So that's it.
Thank you so much.
And
Thank
I
you.
want to say thank you for today. We had to change very quickly as we had technical problems with our scheduled talk, who we will try to get into the studio another time for us.
That's Lisa Taron, one of the team members at TIHA. Thank you so much for your contributions today. And to everyone, yes, continue subscribing to Trans and Intersex History Africa on YouTube and Facebook. But if you want to keep coming back and seeing all the videos, YouTube is very important. I thank you all for showing up today and on our conversation on Transgender Day of Visibility. From me, your host, Victor Mukasa, and to the entire team at Trans and Intersex History Africa, we say happy Transgender Day of Visibility this coming Monday, and we will be back here next Friday with yet another archival conversation from activists in Africa. Thank you very much. Au revoir et bonne nuit.